The focus, I think, from the Scottish Government in particular in the white paper that we've got now on making us all wealthier and attracting businesses to Scotland with lower taxes was really at odds with the purpose of independence amongst the view of that original group of radical independence campaigners, which really is the point of independence, that we want a fairer, more equal society. That's what we're all trying to strive for. That's why we're here. That's why we cared about independence. And of course we have an awful lot in common with the Yes campaign, and with what's in the white paper. There's various bits that we would support, I think, in the radical independence campaign. But part of the reason for our existence as a campaign is to articulate an alternative vision and to say that another Scotland is possible. That's a Scotland that rejects austerity outright and the vile rhetoric of scroungers and skivers, but which actually advocates for a genuine social security system, one that lets nobody slip through the net. And one, as a Green, I would advocate a citizens' income, and that's something that we're starting to talk about in the Radical Independence campaign, an income that is enough to live on, that treats you with dignity, and that really says something about the solidarity that we have with each other. I think that's a really important thing, and Robin, when he finally gets here, will, I'm sure, mention that the Common Wheel project that he's running is taking that kind of idea on board as well. And I think it's fairly starkly contrasted, that idea of a citizen's income and equality and a really decent social security system, with ideas about lowering corporation tax, for example, and saying, okay, big business, you can come in and you can perpetuate the growth and wealth, the number of billionaires that we have in our country, at the same time that we're seeing the rise in food banks and the poverty and despair that we see in our country at the moment. Another Scotland is possible when power doesn't just lie with politicians, but with the people. And that's the fundamental reason why I turned to Yes in the first place. But I think there's a really important role for Rick to play and for all of us to play in making sure that if we get independence, when we get independence, that power doesn't just transfer from Westminster to Holyrood, and it doesn't just stay there, but it comes further out than that it actually genuinely comes out to the people. Real democracy in local communities, in our institutions and in our industries is absolutely crucial for making sure that we can be that self-determining nation. And in our book, Radical Independence book, monarchy has no place in that democracy. From crown estates to taxpayer-funded palaces, there is no place for a royal family within a democratic country, and particularly not the kind of country that we are trying to build. And another Scotland is possible when we don't simply rely on depleting reserves of polluting, climate-changing oil to fund a growth in wealth, and for that matter, relying on new forms of gas extraction like fracking. As Assad said, we've got 25% of Europe's wind power, 10% of the tidal power in Europe sits just off our shores. We have to use that. We have to secure Scotland's energy for future generations as well, and to make sure that we really are a self-sustaining nation, and that we can look after ourselves and others and not simply rely on something that is just going to make the world a worse place to be in. So that's some areas where we might differ from the white paper and from the SNP articulation of Yes. But there are, of course, many things that where we're together. And we stand shoulder to shoulder against the status quo and against the neoliberal status quo that we have, that is, in all intents and purposes, getting worse. And there's a really lovely part, I don't know if you've seen it, but the Radical Independence campaign has a declaration of independence on its website. Go and check it out. There's a wonderful video on YouTube of David Heyman, the actor, reading it as well. It's quite beautiful. And if you forgive me, I'm just going to read out a little bit from it, which I think articulates where we sit against the no camp. For 30 years, we've waited for Britain's rulers to live up to our hopes. They either didn't notice or didn't care. But now they notice. Now they see the chance for working men and working women to take back a nation. Now they tremble at the thought that we might really do it. Because what drives no forward is the fear of those who stand to lose their privilege. They fear their kingdom of greed faces its demise. They fear real democracy. And they fear that in a land beyond Westminster, we will rediscover hope. I think that articulates quite beautifully where the differences are between the yes and the no sides. But how do we actually rediscover hope? And on a practical level, I think that's really about shifting nations' feelings. It's shifting us all from fear towards hope. And it's about giving people power to be part of that transformation of a country. It's about giving people the chance to be involved in shaping that new nation, and whether that's in a constitutional process or in meetings where we get together and go to the pub afterwards and talk about how we're going to change the world. But RIC exists, the Radical Independence Campaign exists, as a group of branches across the country. There's about 2,000 people in the books just in Edinburgh alone who are part of the Radical Independence Campaign. And we get together in meetings and we go out on the doorsteps talking to people, but more importantly listening to people, asking them about their hopes and their fears for Scotland and for the future. And for so many people, particularly in some of the poorest and more deprived areas of Edinburgh, we find that the people we're talking to, this is the first time anyone's ever asked their opinion. It's the first time anyone's ever really given a crap about what they think and asked them to be part of this new country that we're trying to create. And I think that is an incredibly powerful thing that RIC has a really good role to play in. So that conversation is an important one, and I think it's really putting on the table the fact that this referendum isn't just about the currency, it isn't about Europe, and it isn't about whether we can still watch EastEnders. It's about all of us, and it's about all of us having a chance to shape that future. And I think I'll leave it there so I can hear from you. Thanks.